Good evening, and thank you for attending. My name is Denise McKelvey, and I'll be the moderator for this evening's candidate debate. The Citizens Clean Election Commission is the sponsor for this evening's event. The Clean Elections Act is a campaign finance reform measure initiated by Arizona citizens and passed by voters in 1998. Participation as a clean elections candidate is strictly voluntary. The system provides full funding for qualified candidates who agree to abide by the Clean Elections Act and rules. To qualify for funding, participating candidates must illustrate the support of their constituents by gathering $5 qualifying contributions from registered voters in their legislative district. The candidates agree to adhere to contribution and spending limits and may not accept money from special interest groups. They also agree to participate in these forums. As we move into the debate, we encourage audience questions. If you have questions, please print them clearly on the card given to you when you walked in and hold it up. One of the volunteers will come and bring it to me. We screen questions for clarity to eliminate duplications, speeches, or personal attacks on candidates. If you need another card, just raise your hand. The debate is scheduled for 1 hour, so we may not get to all your questions, but we will do our best. There's an independent timer who will see to it that all the candidates have equal time to answer questions and will tell them when their time is up. Our format this evening will be opening statements, 2 minutes each, 2 minutes each to answer audience questions, 2 minutes to answer candidate-to-candidate questions, and then the closing statements will also be 2 minutes each. We ask that you remain polite to all the candidates and give them a fair and uninterrupted hearing, no matter how strongly you may agree or disagree with anything being said. This means no applause, outburst, or cheers, except for now when we introduce the candidates. This is especially important because we are using closed captioning services that are available after this debate for those individuals who are hearing impaired. As such, I will refer to each candidate by their full name prior to each question, and I ask that the candidates speak clearly into their microphones. Tonight, our participants are Mr. Stephen Zachary, Clean Elections candidate, Democrat, running for the state Senate. Mr. Russell Bowers, Republican, running for a state representative. Mr. David Butler, Clean Elections candidate, Democrat, running for the House. Mr. Michael Kielsky, Libertarian, running for the House. Ms. Sheila Ogea, Clean Elections candidate, Democrat, running for the House. And Mr. Justin Olson, Republican, running for the House. The order in which the candidates will speak has been determined by alphabetical order by last name, starting with the Senate, and will progress from that standing point. The closing order will be determined by reverse alphabetical order by last name. Mr. Stephen Zachary, will you start the opening remarks, please?
Thank you. Thank you, everybody who's come here tonight. Really want to give a special thank you to Clean Elections. This is a great opportunity for the citizens of Legislative District 25 to find out who is the best person to represent them. And I would hope that come election day, that I would be the one selected. We need legislators who are focused in on what is in the best interest of the citizens, not their own personal best interest or financial gain. I believe that the problem with the Arizona legislature is it has not focused in on the three critical points, one being jobs, the other is the family, and the third is the community. And if we're going to have a thriving community, we have to have jobs in Legislative District 25. My idea to have good paying jobs has to start with education. We need to have a commitment to lifelong learning. During the course of our legislative process, education has been substantially ignored to our economic peril. We have to change that. If we don't, our economy is going to continue to suffer. We have to build strong communities. I was blessed and fortunate to receive law enforcement support, partially, I believe, because I believe in community policing. I want everybody to know who their police officer is, bring the respect for law enforcement back, and so that we can have a good community. When we have good jobs and we have good community, then the families will thrive. So I hope on November you choose to elect Stephen Zachary for your state senate. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Russell Bowers.
Thank you also for coming and to Clean Elections, for allowing us to meet and have this discussion, and I hope it's fruitful for everybody. I'm 62 years today, born in Mesa, Arizona, and third, fourth generation, I guess I'm a fourth generation. I've served previously in the legislature for a period of time, and it's been a while back, and at my age, everything looks a while back. I do think that experience matters. Of the concerns that I have, I share Mr. Zachary's thoughts that jobs and the ability to be trained and to employ one's skills in a free and open market is critical. So to have the ability to not only find employment, but be prepared in a variety of ways to be employable. I work at EVIT, and it's a wonderful training institution right here in our hometown of Jewel in Arizona. And so it helps train young adults and high school age children in a variety of skills that give them confidence and helps lift all their boats, including academics. I also believe that that ties into education, that seeing how a skills CTE training environment lifts their confidence, we also see how that it also lifts their academic performance back at their home schools. And lastly, in public safety. Also, I am supported by fire and law and believe very strongly that people need to feel secure in their homes and in their neighborhood and in their interaction in the community, and hope that everything I do will have that in mind as one of the principles that I would govern on. I thank you so much for letting me come tonight.
Thank you. Mr. David Butler.
Thank you very much. Thank you to Clean Elections for hosting this debate tonight. Again, my name is David Butler, and I am the Democratic Party candidate from LD25 for the House of Representatives. I've been living in Mesa for 19 years. I arrived in Arizona in 1993. I am married to my lovely wife, Vivian. I have 3 grown children and 1 grown stepdaughter, and between us we have 10 grandchildren. Right now I am semi-retired. I operated a business as a wholesale distributor here in Mesa and in the Phoenix area for 18 years, and I left that roughly a year ago. I'm proud to be a Clean Elections candidate and not beholden to any dark money interests. To me, that is very important. I believe strongly that the dark money must be removed from the political process so that everybody is on the same even keel. I have volunteered for several campaigns. I have been active with Citizens for a Better Arizona. I am currently the chair of the LD25 Democratic Party. I am running because I am somebody who looks ahead to the future. And I want to paraphrase my political hero, Robert F. Kennedy, who said, "Some people see things as they are and ask why. I see things that should be and ask why not." And that's what my position is going to be when elected, to look into the future and to work hard to make it better for everybody. I'm not an ideologue, and I welcome new ideas, and I look forward to working with everybody on both sides of the aisle. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Michael Kielsky.
Good evening. Thank you, everybody, for being present here and listening to us drone on. I want to start out by first giving proper credit for hosting this debate to the unfortunate few here in Arizona that were forced to fund clean elections. Yes, that's right. The money for clean elections is dirty, taken as an additional surcharge on fines and penalties, often from those who can least afford it, so that politicians and the Clean Elections Commission may use that money. But the politicians who use it and the commission which spends it, they should be ashamed. I am not a clean elections candidate. Again, my name is Michael Kielsky. I'm the Libertarian candidate for State House LD25. I'm a criminal defense attorney. I work in the community. I've been working in the community for years. My number one goal is to improve justice and to increase liberty. My opponents will tell you exactly the same thing. They will each promise that they will have the government do more of what you like and that they will work to have it do less of what you don't like. Oh, the individual issues may differ, but the promises are identical. My promise is different. I pledge to do everything that I can to have the government do less. In every way, less of what you don't like and less of what you might like. The goal is to have less government in our lives, in our bedrooms, and in our pocketbooks, and have more individual choice to do what we think is best and reap the benefits of those choices, or pay the consequences. It is what any reasonable adult would want for themselves and should grant to their neighbor. I ask each of you, are we now a society of infants who run crying to our paternalistic government to fix every conceivable wrong, discomfort, or challenge? Well, we're getting there. And if you keep voting for the same old, that's what will happen. Vote for Michael Kielsky, Libertarian.
Thank you. Ms. Sheila Ogea.
Hi, thank you all for being here tonight, and thank you to Clean Elections for the opportunity to run for office. The reason I decided to run was because as a woman and a mother of 2 daughters, I am very tired of the Republican Party trying to make laws to control our reproductive lives. That's not my only issue, but that's the main issue. That's what I'm all about. I have been I lived in Arizona when I was growing up. I got married, and my husband and I moved to Michigan, where he was from. We lived there for 30 years, where we raised our 2 daughters. And we moved back to Arizona after 30 years when my husband retired. And we've been here since 1999. This is where my family, I had sisters and brothers and aunts and uncles and nieces and nephews. So it was coming home for me. This was always a place we used to come here every few years. So anyway, I am also for education, and I think that we owe it to our future generations to invest in education for the future.
Thank you. Mr. Justin Olson.
Thank you for having given us this opportunity to come and participate in this forum this evening. It's a real pleasure to be here with each of these distinguished candidates, and I want to just take this opportunity to describe a little bit about why I'm running for re-election to the state legislature. My name is Justin Olson. I was first elected to represent Mesa in the state legislature in 2010, about 4 years ago, and it's been an honor to serve the citizens of Mesa in the state legislature. At the time when I was first elected, the state was facing a $3.6 billion budget deficit, and I ran on a platform that it was time for our elected officials to make the difficult choices that each of us had to make in our own circumstances, in our own families, in our own businesses. And that is that we needed to balance our budget. We needed to do it without asking for more of the hardworking Arizona families, without asking for more of future generations in new debt, and without being unaccountable to correct accounting principles. So I ran on a platform of balancing the budget with no new debt, no new taxes, and no new budget gimmicks. I was very excited that in the first year down at the legislature, I was joined by many others who had campaigned on similar priorities, and we were successful in my first year in the legislature in delivering on this promise, on balancing the budget and doing it without any new taxes or debt or budget gimmicks. And we've balanced the budget each year since then. Now we are facing some substantial challenges once again, and it is a priority that I offer and a promise that I offer to Mesa citizens that I will continue to be an advocate for fiscal responsibility, to make sure that we pay our bills today, that we don't pass on the burdens of government to our children and their children and to future generations, but that we are accountable with fiscal responsibility, that we balance our budget, and that we address the priorities of our state. I'm looking forward to discussing those priorities and the accomplishments I've made on each of those during this evening.
Thank you. We will now move into the debate questions. The first question will go to Mr. Russell Bowers. What steps do you recommend to address Arizona's budgetary deficits?
Thank you for the question. As a father of 7 and grandfather now, soon to be 12, I've always tried to tell and show my children that you use it up, wear it out, make it do or do without. That you fiscally prepare for the future. You're willing to learn how to work hard. And those principles and others, a principled approach to life, can be applied in governmental situations. What we have seen, much as what has been said by others, is that government has tried to address every need of the public, and in doing so has created even more need in the public, and those needs now are coming back to roost. They have been put off by some wonderful work from Mr. Olson and his colleagues. But now there are some recurrent demands from education and also from our corrections that will require, again, some difficult decisions in the upcoming election and in the upcoming session. And it really comes down to prioritizing what are the needs and address the needs, and then move down the scale of priorities until there isn't any more of the taxpayers' dollars, and then you have to stop. So address the need, prioritize the need, and pay for the needs, and stop trying to create even more need within the public. And it's a principled approach. If you wanted to do a specific budgetary item, I'd be glad to take a shot at that too. But thank you.
Thank you. Mr. David Butler, what steps do you recommend to address Arizona's budgetary deficits?
Thank you for the question. I would look at the present system and examine it from A through Z, and look at tax credits and loopholes, and see where some of these tax credits and some of these loopholes can be eliminated, and talk to businesses about tying the tax credits into increased hiring, this for that. I look at our state and I see all the money that is spent, and I'll say wasted, on lawsuits because of some of the frivolous, insane laws that have been passed over the years. And that's wrong. That's money that can be recouped and go back into the coffers, the general coffers of the state, and be used elsewhere. And that's important. Yes, we have to be fiscally responsible, and I applaud Representative Olson for the work that he's done, but there always will be people in need. There will always be people in need who just need those resources to make better lives for themselves. And again, it's these lawsuits and all the money that goes into them because of the inane laws that have been passed. Not all, but some. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Michael Kielsky.
When I'm elected, I will work immediately to eliminate as many taxes, whether they're income, sales, or property, as well as fees, surcharges, laws, statutes, codes, rules, and regulations as I can across the board. The reason we have a budget deficit is because we're spending money we don't have, we being the state of Arizona. The state of Arizona is spending money that it does not have. Well, there's an easy solution for that. Stop spending money you don't have. And there's another easier solution for the long term, which is stop taking the money out of the pockets of the citizens of the state of Arizona and spending it on all kinds of things, frivolous or otherwise. There's some talk here of need. Well, of course there's need, but the need is not going to be addressed by taking money from some and giving it to others, where the government picks the people who will be taxed and then hands it out to the people it picks to be given the boon. That is just wrong. The government, because it has done these things for years, for decades, has destroyed any system of charity that we as a society, as a people, were once proud to have in place. The concept of charity has gone out because charity now is government welfare. And heck, why should you bother lifting a finger or spending an extra dime when you're taxed so ridiculously much, every which way, coming and going? You're taxed on your income, you're taxed on your spending, you're taxed on your property, you're taxed on things you have, and you're taxed on things you don't have. You're taxed on things you want, you're taxed on things you don't want. It's got to stop. The insanity must stop. Vote Libertarian.
Thank you. Ms. Sheila Ogea.
Sorry. I think that we need to take out some of the tax loopholes also. I think that we need to invest in our future by investing in teachers to pay them better so that we can teach our children better, and so they'll stay in school and they won't move out of Arizona and move to other places where they can get better paying jobs, and not hire teachers from the Philippines because they can't attract teachers to because they don't pay them enough here. Arizona is one of the lowest paying. They pay their teachers. They pay teachers almost. They're towards the bottom. We need to encourage companies, small companies, to hire people that have been out of work, who are disabled, who are I can't remember, but I think taxes are a good thing. We need taxes to build roads and infrastructure. We've got a lot of things that are deteriorating because we aren't spending the money where we need to spend it.
Thank you. Mr. Justin Olson.
Thank you for this question. This is a critical issue, and as the vice chairman of the Appropriations Committee, the current vice chairman and the likely chairman of the Appropriations Committee, should the Mesa voters send me back for another term, this area is an area that I've paid a lot of attention to and tried to make sure that we seek the best solutions for Arizona and for Mesa. Now, how would we solve this budget deficit that currently exists? Well, first of all, I'll tell you what I won't do, and that is I'm not going to raise taxes. We need to make sure that we enable our economy to grow as much and as fast as it can, and when we take more out of the private sector, then we slow down the economy, and that's the wrong solution for for Arizona. So that's my number one commitment, that we will address this budget deficit, and we will do it without taking more of the hard-earned money of hardworking Arizonans. Secondly, I've made a commitment that we're going to do it without putting the burden on future generations. We're not going to increase debt, and we're not going to do it without being accountable for the actual cost of government by pretending that the deficit doesn't exist through budget gimmicks. So what can we do? Well, first of all, the budget situation is solvable, and we can bridge the gap that currently exists. But we can do it if we are successful in the ongoing lawsuit that affects the budget deficit situation. The largest portion of this deficit is the outcome of this lawsuit. And I'm telling you now that the court applied an interpretation of statute that is not the plain language of the statute. The plain language that the voters of Arizona voted on said that the legislature has an option to fund one component of a funding formula or another component for inflation of that same funding formula. We selected that option because of the dire circumstances that the state was in. So we need to win on this lawsuit.
Thank you. Mr. Stephen Zachary.
Thank you very much. You know, and I'm hearing everything that we had, but I think the term should be rise up. And what I say is rise up. You can either bring yourself down to your circumstance, or you can rise yourself above your circumstance. Leaders rise themselves above their circumstance. So when I get in there as state senator, my belief is going to be we're going to rise above it. And how do we rise above a budget deficit? You increase your revenue. How do you increase your revenue? When I worked for the governor of Minnesota in the 1990s, we did a survey of why companies go to a place and why companies stay to a place. And the number one reason why they go is because there is a good, lifelong educational system and a dedication to education. Why we're in a budget deficit is because the people who have been running this state have ignored education, have ignored lifelong learning, and have ignored bringing corporations to Arizona. In Mesa, we are one of the largest cities in the United States with no corporate 500, no corporate 1,000 headquartered here. And the reason why is because we keep sending the same people up there who have no understanding of what it costs and what it takes to bring business here. When you bring business here, you increase your revenue, and from there, you can do some things. So my focus, my main number one focus is going to be able to bring business here, get a business identity, increase the revenue, and I want the citizens of Mesa to join me when I say, rise up.
Thank you. Our next question, we'll start with Mr. David Butler. Where do you stand on animal protection issues?
Thank you. I am proud to be endorsed by Humane Voters of Arizona. And simply put, animals have rights too. And they need the protection of the law, just like people do, although they can't vote, but they still require the protection of the law. And everybody, I'm sure, saw what happened with this kennel, where 23 dogs suffocated to death in inhumane conditions. It's hot here, and they were left to suffer. And there needs to be inspections of these kennels by the state, and they have to be brought up to standards, and they have to be watched that they remain at these standards. Again, because animals have rights too, whether it's a dog, a cat, a horse, you name it. They deserve the protection of the voters, the state. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Michael Kielsky.
I'm going to take an issue. I'm going to take what was just said. I'm going to take an issue with that. And again, please don't misunderstand me. I'm a pet owner. We have quite a few animals at our home. and we do quite enjoy the company of animals. But animals do not have rights. In order for something to have rights, it must be able to understand those rights. It must be able to respect the equal rights in others. And quite frankly, even the smartest dog, the smartest cat, does not have the ability intellectually to do that. So rights is the wrong term to use when it comes to talking about animals. Animals that are abused do not deserve that abuse. Animals that are misused, that are otherwise put in a situation that is unjust, of course, they do not deserve that. And to the extent that people are doing that, causing those kinds of, acting in a way that is that harmful to animals in an unjust and improper way, then they deserve the punishment that comes to them. But again, I really take issue with saying that animals have rights. This just logically does not follow, because if a lion has rights, then how is that lion going to respect your rights when the lion is hungry? It cannot, because it is what it is. It is an animal at the end of the day. So again, my bottom line is this: animals do not deserve to be abused. They do not deserve to be mistreated. And when that is done, there are appropriate remedies. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Sheila Ogea.
Thank you. I think that we need to tie animal abuse with, it's usually, it starts with animal abuse and then it turns into domestic violence or other things. So we need to have laws that go after people that are abusing animals, killing them or poisoning them, because if we don't do it, if we don't catch them when they're doing that, then they're going to go on to be worse criminals.
Thank you. Mr. Justin Olson.
Thank you for that question. I certainly support the humane treatment of animals and certainly think that the law should account for any abuse of animals. But the question, of course, becomes, the definition of abuse. To one individual, eating meat would be considered abusing an animal. To another, it is not. That is the purpose for which God intended the animal to be on the earth, for the consumption of humans. And so there are discrepancies or differences in views on what constitutes abuse, and that's where the challenges arise. But certainly I support the appropriate treatment of animals, the humane treatment of animals, and punishing abuse of animals. If I could just, in my remaining time, just address a couple of the issues that were raised in the last response. I think that it's important that we don't perpetuate the misunderstanding that Arizona teachers are the lowest paid teachers in the country. Many times I hear this repeated over and over again, and the reality is that it's not true. It's also not true that Arizona has the worst performing schools in the country. We have some very top-notch schools in Arizona, and we have made education a priority in our country and in our state, and funded it accordingly. Mesa is actually of states or of cities of its size, it has the highest graduation rate. Arizona has 3 of the top 10 high schools nationwide. So education is a priority to me, and it's a priority that I will continue to advance and advocate for at the state legislature.
Thank you. Mr. Stephen Zachary.
Thank you. Just yesterday, my wife and I were coming home from church, and there was a dog running in the street, and we stopped traffic going both ways to let the dog get away, and the dog kept running. We have an obligation to protect animals. We have an obligation to protect children. We have an obligation as humans to be stewards of what has been given to us. I know it's Monday, not Sunday, but I guess I'm going to preach just a little bit. We as the citizens have an obligation to stop abuse. And if somebody believes that they can abuse their neighbor, they can abuse their animal, they can abuse anything, it needs to stop. When we sit and have crazy laws that say you can discriminate, you can engage in harassment, then you're engaging in abuse, and it doesn't matter if it's your neighbor or your pet, no matter how much you're abusing, it needs to stop. Now, I don't know why we went on a question of education, but I'm gonna tell you the truth. And here's the truth. My sister is the assistant superintendent of schools of St. Paul. And she took my wife's teacher salary in Arizona and said for the same job in Minnesota, my wife could double her salary. That's why they have corporate 100s, corporate 500s, and some corporate 5s in Minnesota because they have a dedication to education. I'm not gonna let anybody say it's not happening. It is, that we're ignoring education, and I'm not gonna let somebody not tell the truth.
Thank you. We're now going to move into the candidate-to-candidate questions, where each candidate will have the opportunity to ask a question of their opponent. Before the debate, the House candidates randomly drew the name of another House candidate. For the Senate, I will ask Mr. Zachary a question from the audience. We will now begin with the House. The first question is from Mr. Michael Kielsky to Mr. Russell Bowers.
Now, do I have 2 minutes to ask the question?
Thank you for asking that. I ask that you not exceed 15 seconds for the question, please.
Mr. Bowers, will you join me in pledging to repeal the state income tax and to support the legalization of marijuana? If so, great. If not, why not?
Thanks for the question. My wife and I, when we looked at our latest property tax bill, knowing that we do need taxes, there is a level of taxation necessary for proper government, we asked ourselves, what would I rather have taxation built on? Income tax, where at least it has some tie with the amount of money that comes into me, or property tax, where my mother could no longer afford her own home and moved to a different state because she couldn't, on the income that she had, continue to pay the property taxes. So if you're asking me to get rid of income taxes, I'll say I qualify that by taking the second word and adding a new word on the front. I would love to get rid of property taxes or see them reduced where the elderly can stay in their own homes. Every time a bond issue passes, go to the assessor's office and see the marginalized elderly that have to finally give up their homes because they can no longer afford to keep them. That's where I think injustice is. There is at least some tie to what I make and an income tax. As far as marijuana, I have worked among the Indians of Sinaloa and Chihuahua, where the people that grow the marijuana and smuggle across abuse those people and see the effects directly on them. And I've seen the effects in my own relatives and in the kids that I try to help in our school. And I don't think we should ever say that marijuana should be totally legalized. And anybody who says that it has no effect, that it's a benign influence on society and learning especially, is grossly misguided. I would not support that.
Thank you. Our next question is from Ms. Sheila Ogea for Mr. David Butler.
I would like to ask you, David, do you support birth control being covered by health insurance if Viagra is covered by health insurance?
Thank you, Sheila. Yes, I do support that it should be covered by health insurance if we're going to support or cover Viagra. It's where the religious factions of the country are, I believe, sticking their nose, for lack of a better term, into places where I believe they shouldn't. And women's health, reproduction is one of those places. And that should be between the woman and her doctor and her family. So yes, it's an important issue. There are a lot of different sides to the issue and a lot of intricacies to the issue, but I do support that it should be covered by health insurance.
Thank you. Next question, Mr. Justin Olson will ask for Mr. Michael Kielsky.
Mr. Kielsky, I just have a question about your decision to run as a libertarian candidate versus trying to influence the policy decisions that the major political parties take. And the purpose for my question, if you look at Ron Paul or others who are leaders in the libertarian movement, would it be more effective to pursue that approach or run as a libertarian candidate?
The short answer to that question is I can't hold my nose long enough to join either of the Republican or the Democrat parties. The position of the Libertarian Party is the only position that I can proudly stand behind. That is the position that we stand for less government, more freedom. We stand for the idea that government should be a last resort, that government should only, well, really, what we stand behind the proposition that is in the preamble to the Arizona Constitution, that government is created for the protection of individual rights. And whenever government goes beyond that, government abuses the people. Government abuses the individual rights of the people. And again, as a libertarian, I support the idea that we each are responsible for our lives. We each are responsible for our families, and we should be permitted, we should have the rights, we have the right, which government has curtailed year in and year out, decade after decade, to our own autonomy. And I'm fighting to get back to liberty, true liberty. Not a little bit here and a little bit there, not on one issue or another, but across the board. That is a right, the autonomy, the right to control what we put in our bodies, the right to do with our bodies what we choose to do with our bodies, the right to enjoy the property that we have lawfully acquired through trade and through work, the right to spend our money where we choose to spend it, the right to the company of those people we wish to we wish to engage with, and to right to not have to necessarily encounter those people that we don't want to join. I am for true liberty across the board.
Thank you. The next question is from Mr. Russell Bowers for Ms. Sheila Ogea.
Do you want me to just read it? If
Please.
I may? Sheila, thank you for taking the question. Are there any regulations that you feel should be removed or reduced that might help business and families? And what might those be?
That would help families. I know, I can't think of anything right now.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. The next question will be asked by Mr. David Butler for Mr. Justin Olson.
Thank you. Mr. Olson, as it pertains to the women's movement in Arizona and in the U.S., what is your position on equal pay for equal work?
Thank you for that question. I absolutely support equal pay for equal work. I think that it is critical that individuals have the liberty to negotiate with an employer, with a contractor, with whomever it may be with whom they want to reach an accord. And they, in the free marketplace, have that ability to go out and earn what they are able to negotiate in that contract. And I don't think that the government should get in the way of anyone earning that wage that they are able to negotiate.
Thank you. Our final question for Mr. Stephen Zachary. How do you propose to restore education funds to public schools?
Thank you. Again, that was almost like a softball, because that's been my whole thing, is we have to put that number one. If we have to cut somewhere else, then we have to cut somewhere else, because once we say we are going to be a state that's committed to lifelong learning, then we're going to be able to attract businesses. So you can put something on the sideline for a second while you put a commitment to education first, and then when you put the commitment to education first, then businesses show up, you get more revenue, and then you take the things off the shelf that you had to put on the shelf. The problem that we have is the focus is backwards. The focus is on how do you cut here or how do we reduce here. But there's still a lot of people in this city. I'm just going to talk about Mesa. I've knocked on doors in every neighborhood in Mesa, Arizona, and there are a lot of people who are doing well. They're not doing, even the ones who are doing well are not doing as well as they could because of the fact that we have not made a commitment to attracting businesses. I ran for office in 2006 and when after I moved here and couldn't believe that Mesa, Arizona does not have a Fortune 500 company located here. And as I got here, Fortune 500 companies were moving out of Arizona as it was. And each time a Fortune 500 company moves out, they take jobs with them. We need to make a commitment, and I'm going to stay on this. We need to what? Rise up. Once we rise up and say we are going to be the leader in education, businesses will flow, and then that way we can take all the other items off the table. And that's my goal. That's number one. It's going to stay number one. And on November 5th, after I get elected Senate, that's going to be the first thing I work on. Thank you.
Thank you. It's time to begin the candidates' closing statements. The first closing statement will be given by Mr. Justin Olson.
Thank you for having this forum, and thank you for each of you that have attended this evening for coming out and participating in this important civic process. I just want to speak to the voters of Mesa and to reiterate the priorities that I stand for and that I hope that you will send me back to the legislature to continue to advocate for. And those priorities are to make sure that we have fiscal responsibility at the state legislature, and that in doing so, we also meet the priorities of the government services that Mesa expects. And those priorities are education. We do have high-quality educational opportunities in Arizona, and it's time that we stop damaging the image of our state by repeating things that are not true, but that instead we highlight the incredible opportunities that do exist. Do we have challenges? Absolutely we have challenges. Will we continue to strive to overcome those challenges? We will. But we need to focus on the opportunities that do exist for Arizona. As I mentioned previously, in Arizona, you have great educational opportunities, particularly in Mesa. Mesa has the highest graduation rate among cities of its size. We have countless educational scholarships and awards that are received by Mesa students. In Arizona, we have 3 of the highest, of the top 10 ranked schools, high schools in the state. We have quality opportunity. We have challenges, and we will continue to work to address those. I make a priority and a promise to the voters of Arizona that I will continue to be a voice for balanced budgets and doing it with no new taxes, no new budget gimmicks, and no new debt. I ask for your vote to send me back to the state legislature to continue to be a leader on the pro-life movement, a leader on the Second Amendment, a leader on liberty. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Sheila Ogea.
Hi, thank you. Voters have a choice in Arizona to vote to support women's rights or to not support women's rights. And this is the reason I'm running is because I believe in a woman's right to choose. And I will also work very hard for the city of Mesa to make it a better place to live and to make our priority education in Arizona.
Thank you. Mr. Michael Kielsky.
Thank you all for coming and listening to us, as I said earlier, drone on. Is it truly necessary that when our neighbor lets their grass grow too long, that we call and complain to the government so they can send out their minions to bring our neighbors back in line? What happened to just talking to our neighbors directly, asking them to address the issue, or offering a helping hand when they are in need? That's what an adult would do. But no, too many people just go with there ought to be a law and somebody should take care of that, just to avoid the responsibility of being a good citizen in a community of fellow citizens. They prefer to act as kindergartners, to tattle on their neighbors, and some even watch with glee as the power of government descends on their neighbors. Shame on them. Your choices are clear. More empty promises on the left and the right about that if we get just good and honorable people to manage the levers of power in the government, things will get better. Well, they've sold that same swill for decades, and things are not getting better. You're keeping less of your money, you have less rights, there are ever more defined crimes, and the power of government grows without end in sight. One of the consequences of decades of thinking that these false promises will lead to real results is that the volumes of statutes, laws, regulations, ordinances, and rules keep growing every year. Do you recall the maxim, ignorance of the law is no excuse? Well, there's no human being who can possibly know all the laws to which we are held accountable. Yet you, each and every single one of you in this room, could be found guilty of a criminal act of which you are barely aware. It is only a question of whether anybody has bothered to try to figure out which laws you might have broken. That you have broken some is certain. I say for once, choose freedom. Take a stand. Say no to more government power and vote libertarian. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. David Butler.
Thank you, Clean Elections, for hosting this debate this evening, and thank you to everybody in the audience. And you're here for a reason. You're here because you care. You care about your fellow citizens, those in need, those working hard to get ahead, and those with a vision for the future for themselves and for their families. I read report after report of the education dilemma facing our state, and all the reports that I see, we rank at or near the bottom. And it's time that we work hard and make Arizona a place where education is a priority, and that every student has the right and the ability to get ahead, whether it's to go to college, whether it's for technical school, whether it's for their career. But they have that right, and we have to work extra hard to make sure that the educational system is funded the way it's supposed to be funded, and so that our students will graduate and have a strong conviction and feeling of where they're going with their lives. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Russell Bowers.
Thank you again for putting up with us. And I'm grateful, even at my advanced age, to be able to sit up here with all these young people. Everybody looks young from my point of view, and say why I might be a qualified candidate to serve you. I'm grateful for Justin. I knew and supported Justin when he first ran, and I'm grateful for the hard work he's done. And I'm grateful for the principles of my party. But I'm also grateful for the principles that hold society together. I have a record that showed that I reduced unnecessary regulation in several arenas. And I will continue to do that in order to give business and our families more opportunity to excel. I have a record of examining education, and now I have worked in education in the CTE arena, and I see every day how the confidence of learning new skills and trades raises these youth. 98.5% of the completers of EVIT graduate from their home high schools. 68% of the completers at EVIT go on to college. That's better than anywhere. This is a formula that works, and I will promote it. You can't do everything, but that's one thing I will do. Maintain support for the protection of our homes, our seniors, our families, and our community. We have seen rising and falling in a lot of different areas of misbehavior, I'll call it, from hard crime to abuse of the elderly to fraud, etc. These have come and gone. But it is critical to keep our promises to the elderly, especially and to our families, to make our citizens know that we are there to keep them safe as we can on our own. Thank you so much for letting me be here.
Thank you. Mr. Stephen Zachary.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Clean Elections. Thank you, all the audience. We have a choice coming up, and I hope that choice is Stephen Zachary for State Senate. We need to focus in and get away from the bickering that the politicians have done over the years. We need to get away from the rewarding their friends. We need to get away from false statements to try to hide the truth. And we need to get back to what is very important. And I say that there's only 3 things that the legislature should work on, and every bill needs to meet that litmus test. Will it increase jobs? Will it help the family? And will it build communities? If it does not, then there's no reason to have the bill. There's no reason to have the law. How do you build jobs? You have to have a commitment to learning. You have to do that. As long as we continue to say we're not going to have a commitment to learning, then we're going to have the economy the way it is. We have to restore the respect for law enforcement and give law enforcement the opportunity to be in the community, to knock on your door, to be invited in, so that the police officer knows who the people are in the neighborhood, and the neighborhood knows who the police officer is who can help them. To have them in cars or to have them isolated from our community is not going to help. We need to get them back on the street, and if that means that we have to increase of some police to be able to do that, I'm for that as well. We need to make sure government stays out of the family. We have a number of laws that are passed that hinders the family, doesn't promote and support the family. Stephen Zachary is for community, Stephen Zachary is for family, Stephen Zachary is for jobs, and Stephen Zachary is for the people of Mesa. And I hope Legislative District 25, come Election Day, you vote for me. Thank you very much.
Thank you. To our candidates, we thank you very much for participating in our forum tonight. And to all of you, we thank all of you for taking the time to come and inform yourselves before voting. We encourage you to find out more about clean elections and the candidates running for office by visiting www.azcleanelections.gov. A link to the video of this debate, as well as other clean elections debates, will be posted on that site within 72 hours of a scheduled debate. We also ask that you fill out the debate evaluation form you received as you entered and return it to one of our volunteers. Your feedback is important to the commission. Thanks again, and have a safe trip home.